Thank you, Chairman Rounds. I have a very short opening remark, so I'm going to read those in, and then we'll get right to it. So this hearing is so important. I, again, appreciate the way that the chairman and I work together, hearing from all of you about the Department of Defense, your Cyber Force Generation Plan, the associated implementation plan, Cybercom 2.0. And for the witnesses here, thank you for your service and your commitment. Because now more than ever, the United States needs a cyber workforce equipped with the acumen, expertise to defend our networks, to execute offensive operations in a rapidly is not a fast enough word to even describe it, a rapidly changing battle space that achieves our national security objectives. I would point out, however, that the new National Defense Strategy, publicly released on Friday, only mentions cyber in 3 places. Cyber's everywhere. I'm frankly surprised at how little emphasis has been placed on cyber in comparison to other capabilities in the NDS. It doesn't engender much confidence that cyber is being treated with the necessary urgency or priority by this administration that I think we would all agree that we need. The Department of Defense must take swift action to develop programs that enable our cyber warfighters to increase cyber domain mastery and operational readiness. It's critical. We have to promote standardized training across all of our services. We need a sustainable talent pipeline. I know you're going to talk about that. And we need effective initiatives for retention. Because in an era of persistent cyber threats, when foreign adversaries like China and Russia and Iran, they're probing and testing and challenging our systems, I would say by the nanosecond, not even enough to say daily, every single second. They're seeking any opportunity they can to degrade our command control, disrupt our operations, steal our most sensitive information. And they're using sophisticated cyber tactics to disrupt military operations, spreading dangerous propaganda to American citizens and denying access to life-saving goods. So advancements in artificial intelligence by our adversaries, of course, they heighten the sense of urgency we must all feel right now. We must have to protect against AI-orchestrated campaigns aimed at targeting us, our critical infrastructure, our supply chains. And we can't defend against these disturbing yet real threats without cyber professionals every step along the way, armed with the requisite skills and abilities to bolster the cyber enterprise. And so for too long, the approach to manning, training, equipping our cyber forces, we've just lagged behind, and we need to really step that up, in my opinion. And the Department of Defense, we know continue to struggle with recruitment, retaining cyber talent, particularly against such a competitive private sector. And so this issue undermines our readiness across all domains, and it's a priority of this subcommittee and the committee at large to help the department do everything that we can to fix it, because we can't fight today's digital wars without the outdated infrastructure, with our inflexible personnel structures. We need a skilled professional cybersecurity force. It's not a luxury. It's a foundational requirement for all of us. So I am committed to work together in a bipartisan way on this committee, on the full committee, with all of you to be sure that we have the cyber force of the future that we need and will continue to need going forward. Thank you again for your work and for being here, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And we all know you.
Thank you. Chairman Rounds, Ranking Member Rosen, and distinguished members of the committee, it is an honor to appear before you today. As you mentioned, it's really quite the privilege to be on this side of the table, representing the department and all of the efforts that we're working forward to tackle those challenges that Senator Rosen highlighted in her opening remarks. I'm grateful for the opportunity today, in particular, to discuss the Department of War's comprehensive efforts to organize, train, and equip our cyber forces to meet the complex challenges the nation faces in the 21st century. The subject of today's hearing, Cyber Command 2.0, represents what the Secretary of War, Secretary Hexeth, mentioned at the Reagan Defense Forum, the most significant transformation of U.S. Cyber Command since its inception 15 years ago. This initiative is the cornerstone of our effort to ensure American dominance in a rapidly evolving cyberspace domain, meeting the President's clear mission to the Department of War, achieving peace through strength. Cyber Command 2.0 is only one of the key initiatives we're working to maximize our cyber forces. We are also working to validate and, if necessary, update our force design and force employment to ensure we are able to achieve the maximum outcomes. For many years, the department has recognized that our approach to building and sustaining cyber talent was not keeping pace. Our adversaries are investing heavily in cyber, while we have been constrained by traditional force generation models, which, while effective for conventional forces, fail to fully address the unique requirements of cyberspace operations. This has created significant challenges in recruiting the right people, retaining our best operators, and providing the agile, specialized training needed to win. Our legacy force generation model is inconsistent, hindering our ability to adapt at speed and scale to counter threats like Volt Typhoon and Salt Typhoon, and quickly integrate emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. To address these systematic challenges head-on, the Secretary of War approved Cyber Command 2.0, a fundamental reimagining of how we build and manage our cyber forces. At its core, Cyber Command 2.0 is founded on three essential fundamental pillars. The first of those is domain mastery. We're shifting from a compliance-based paradigm to one that fosters deep, career-long expertise. Our goal is to cultivate a cadre of cyber personnel who achieve true mastery through enduring operational experience rather than rotating through cyber assignments as generalists. Second is specialization. The cyber domain is not one size fits all. Cyber Command 2.0 establishes dedicated pathways for our personnel to become deep experts in fields like industrial control systems or space asset protection, resulting in specialized units aligned to our most critical missions. And third is agility. The cyber threat landscape evolves with unparalleled speed. We require a force that can adapt and employ new technology just as quickly. This model allows for dynamic allocation of talent, ensuring we maintain a proactive posture against the most pressing threats. To bring these pillars to life, we are implementing 7 core attributes. The first is targeted recruiting and assessment. We're shifting from general recruiting to targeted talent acquisition, beginning with an in-service recruiting pilot using validated instruments like a cyber assessment battery to identify individuals with the inherent aptitude and suitability for cyber warfare. Second are incentives for recruiting and retention. To remain competitive, we must implement robust incentive pay and retention bonuses that reward mastery, and we will standardize this pay across the services. Third is tailored and agile training. Through our Advanced Cyber Training and Education Center, we will focus mission-specific skills on demand, ensuring our forces remain ahead of technological advancements and adversary tactics. Fourth, tailored assignment management. We're engaging career pathways we are engineering career pathways that enable sustained operator engagement, allowing operators to build a comprehensive portfolio of tailored experience rather than being forced to move on after a single tour. This approach generates domain mastery within the cyber mission force while also providing greater operational effectiveness when warfighters return to their services and apply their developed talent to service mission sets. Fifth is specialized mission sets. We are developing dedicated units of experts focused on highly specialized missions, such as protection of space assets or the defense of critical infrastructure, making them the world's leading authorities in their fields. Sixth is integrated headquarters and combat support. Our tactical cyber teams will be presented with dedicated headquarters and combat support, ensuring they have the leadership and resources needed to execute their missions without the distractions they have today. And last is optimized unit phasing. To prevent burnout and sustain readiness, we are instituting a unit phasing model that creates a sustainable operational tempo, keeping our personnel focused and effective for the long haul. While each one of these attributes offers merit, the true power lies in their synergy, creating an exponential effect on our ability to generate and sustain cyber talent across the entire talent management lifecycle. These efforts are driven by the creation of 3 enabler organizations within Cyber Command that General Hartman will talk about in his speech. As directed by the Secretary of War, I will oversee the Cyber Command 2.0 implementation, consisting of 97 tasks across 26 lines of effort. This revised force generation model empowers the commander of U.S. Cyber Command to directly influence how our forces are manned, trained, and equipped, to deliver immediate warfighting outcomes while preserving decision space on future organizational constructs. The core attributes of mastery, specialization, and agility are indispensable regardless of any future structural changes. Cyber Command 2.0 represents the beginning of a necessary journey and the department's commitment to providing our cyber warriors with the careers, talent, and support they deserve. In addition to Cyber Command 2.0, the department is undertaking several initiatives to enhance our warfighting capabilities in the cyber domain. They include validating and updating our cyber force design and developing a force employment model that ensures maximum lethality and operational outcomes. Importantly, Cyber Command 2.0's purpose extends beyond the cyber domain. It is a critical joint force capability that must be integrated across all warfighting domains. This sends a clear message to our adversaries. The United States is all in on achieving and maintaining cyber superiority in support of our national interests. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I look forward to continuing to working closely with the subcommittee on this critical national security priority, and I welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you, and I appreciate your comments, Secretary Sutton. General Hartman, welcome, and as you get started, I just want to personally say thank you for your dedicated service to our country and everything that you've done to forward our security through implementation of these types of policies in the cyber domain. And I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Go ahead with your statement, please.
Thank you. Chairman Rounds, Ranking Member Rosen, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the future of our nation's cyber force. Thank you specifically for the requirements in Section 1533 of the fiscal year 23 NDAA that brings us here today. The revised cyber force generation model approved by the department is fundamental to a more lethal, agile, and enduring cyber force capable of deterring and, if necessary, defeating our adversaries in cyberspace. Cybercom 2.0 directly addresses our national security challenges and fixes many of the issues facing our service members. This is a significant upgrade in how we man, train, and equip the world's best cyber force. Since the stand-up of U.S. Cyber Command, we've had challenges manning the cyber force and ensuring we had viable cyber-centric career models across all services. We faced many challenges ranging from duplicative training, uncompetitive and inconsistent compensation, excessive administrative burdens, and a high operational tempo that contributes to an unsustainable stress on the force. Cybercom 2.0 targets these problems through 7 key deliverables that overhaul how the Department of War generates and sustains lethal cyber warfighters. These deliverables include overhauls in targeted recruiting, modernized incentives, specialized mission teams, and optimized operational tempos. This plan gives us what we need. It forges cyber warriors by building upon the warfighting culture and lethal capabilities of the military departments, harnessing their institutional mastery of sustained warfare, their capacity for precise global operations, and their core competency in expeditionary and agile power projection in denied environments. To lead this effort, I've established 3 key enabling organizations. The Cyber Talent Management Organization is developing the Cyber Assessment Battery test to better align incoming talent to ensure we retain high-end warfighters. We're using our Title 10 Section 167 Bravo authorities to budget for standard skills pay and will next focus on retention incentives. The Advanced Cyber Training and Education Center is tailoring training to specialized mission needs while eliminating training redundancy in areas like artificial intelligence expeditionary cyber, and advanced tradecraft. Our Cyber Innovation Warfare Center will more rapidly equip our cyber forces with cutting-edge capabilities and game-changing tradecraft. We will build capabilities we need for the future, not focused on past requirements. This center will serve as the central point of collaboration for industry, academia, government partners, and the cyber operating force. These enabling organizations are being designed to be AI by birth, built from the outset to be data-centric, automated, and decision-optimized. This means that data will be treated as a strategic asset, workflows are engineered for automation, artificial intelligence is embedded into planning, operations, and sustainment, not bolted on later. Artificial intelligence is no longer a future concept. It is an operational capability we are integrating today. In line with our Cyber Command 2.0 vision, we are transforming how the command is organized, enabled, and resourced to operate at the speed and scale required in the cyber domain. We are fundamentally changing how we bring technology into the fight. Rather than relying on long, bespoke government development cycles, we are aggressively leveraging commercial proven AI technologies, the same systems driving productivity, analytics, and automation across the global economy, and rapidly adapting them for military use, while also building classified and mission-specific capabilities internally when required. This industry-first approach allows us to move at the pace of relevance. It enables continuous iteration, rapid upgrades, in alignment with the global AI innovation ecosystem, which no single government entity can replicate on its own. In a domain where our adversaries are already exploiting automation, machine learning, and large-scale data analytics, speed is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Importantly, we're no longer piloting AI for learning, we are operating AI for mission outcomes. Today, AI is being used to accelerate cyber threat detection and response, prioritize and automate defensive actions across large networks, improve operational planning, targeting, and operations, and reducing analyst workload so human expertise is focused on the highest value decisions. These are not experiments, these are capabilities already being delivered across the force. Because getting this right is so critical, we have aligned our Chief AI Officer as a direct report to me, outside traditional stovepipes. This ensures AI, data architecture, and operational design are integrated from day one rather than competing for priority after the fact. Cybercom 2.0 strengthens our integration with other combatant commands. By building more proficient cyber forces, we provide more lethal and capable support to the joint force. When our cyber operators are expertly matched to their roles, receive cutting-edge training, and are freed from administrative burdens to focus on the fight, their operational effectiveness increases exponentially. This enhanced capability directly translates to delivering decisive outcomes for Cybercom and other combatant commanders at the timing and tempo our senior leaders require. In closing, I want to reiterate my appreciation for Congress' support and partnership over the past several years. Changes to our budget and acquisition authorities, as well as the FY23 NDAA Section 1533, provided us the required tools and a clear mandate to address persistent readiness challenges and implement solutions across the cyber mission force. We are using those authorities to implement Cybercom 2.0. I assess implementing Cybercom 2.0 as the best path to get our cyber warriors and our cyber force where it needs to be to support the joint force in crisis and conflict. The Secretary's direction is clear, and we have buy-in and participation from the services. Already, we are leveraging the Army model for proficiency pay, and the Navy is implementing clear career progression for the maritime cyber warfare officers. Your continued support, both in sustained investment and providing flexible authorities to partner with the full spectrum of USAI companies, from major defense primes to venture-backed startups, is what allow us to move fast, stay secure, and maintain our advantage. The success of this endeavor will depend on continued partnership with Congress and the Department to ensure adequate oversight and sustained funding to implement these necessary changes and maintain the world's premier cyber force. This is how we ensure that American innovation remains decisive in cyberspace. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General Hartman. And General Messer, thank you, welcome. Appreciate your service to our country, and with your statement, please proceed.
Yes, sir. Chairman Rounds, Ranking Member Rosen, distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to join this hearing and speak to the importance of cyberspace as an integral part of joint all-domain military operations. Joint operations are reliant on operators who are masters of their craft. For example, an aviation strike operation requires aircrew who are exceptionally skilled in aerial refueling, air intercept control, air-to-air warfare, and strike warfare. It takes years of specialized training to build a team who can succeed in such mission areas. The same is true for our cyber operations. At the same time, the demand for cyber forces across the Joint Force is steadily rising. As you will hear in Combatant Commander posture statements, our adversaries are using the cyber domain as part of their multifaceted campaigns to degrade U.S. and allied interests. U.S. Indo-PACOM has emphasized the defensive cyber operations as the Joint Forces' first line of defense in their theater. And U.S. Southcom has highlighted that cyber espionage as a vector for both intelligence gathering and persuading audience against U.S. interests in their theater. Amid these threats, demand for cyber capabilities is at an all-time high. Threats in cyberspace are currently growing faster than we can scale our actions. The size of the existing cyber mission force requires us to prioritize some efforts and take risk in others, which could delay our response to meeting emerging threats. For all military operations, actions in cyberspace are playing an increasingly important role. That includes operations where the cyber element may not be self-evident. Whether protecting our forces from harm, complementing kinetic action, imposing costs on adversaries, or defending friendly infrastructure, cyberspace operations are critical to the successful employment of the Joint Force. To succeed, we must be proactive, not reactive. Cyber activities must be integrated into every phase of operations, starting with concept development. Military operations in every domain require specialists. Just as specialized air crews support every air operation, specialized cyber operators are essential to ensure U.S. dominance in cyber and all domain operations. Cybercom 2.0 will help us combat the adversary's ability to mass forces with domain mastery and advanced tools, extracting the greatest value from the force that we have. Training, experience, tools, and resourcing will give our operators what they need to prevail in this dynamic domain. On behalf of the men and women of the Joint Force, we appreciate your support for the Cyber Mission Force and for this vital initiative. And with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, General Messer. Look, to begin with, we're in an open session right now, so we have an opportunity to not only ask questions, but to help educate as well. 5 domains: air, land, sea, space, and cyberspace. It appears that there will never be another kinetic activity that goes on in terms of our Department of Defense or the Department of War without having some cyber activity to the left of it, basically to make the field of battle a little bit safer for our young men and women. But in order to do that, it has to be integrated and a part of the larger force. And in order to make that happen, you need professionals that clearly understand their role. That's a lot about what this discussion today is about. It's about the cyber force itself and how they actually provide the needed services to the different COCOM commanders, combatant commanders that we lay out throughout the world. In order to do that, we've got to make sure that the cyber operations can be integrated as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Ms. Sutton, part of the Cybercom 2.0 initiative recommends maturing the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy position to meet the demands of executing Section 167B authority for cyberspace operations peculiar activities. And I just want you to describe what that maturation might look like in practice. Specifically, how would an enhanced Assistant Secretary of Defense for Cyber Policy, how would that office support the force generation objectives outlined in Cybercom 2.0, and what additional responsibilities or authorities would be necessary to effectively execute this expanded role? In other words, what specific resourcing would be required to enable that maturity of the ASD Cyber Policy Office? I know you're new in the role and so forth, but you've got a great deal of experience in the cyber domain and what we've done within the National Defense Authorization Act in the past. Your thoughts, please.
Senator Rounds, thank you for that really important question. So as you mentioned, one of my top priorities going forward is, and what I think one of the key responsibilities of my office is to make sure that cyber is integrated into multi-domain operations. And so having this role be fundamental and be embedded within the Undersecretary of Policy's organization allows that to happen on a daily basis, to bring the cyber domain to all of the policy discussions happening more broadly. I think historically we've seen cyber treated very much in a stovepipe, where the cyber people go off and talk about the cyber domain and do their things in a silo and in a vacuum. And I see one of the primary roles of my office, both as the Assistant Secretary for Cyber Policy as well as the Principal Cyber Advisor, in my role to be an advisor to the Secretary of War, is to be that coordinating function across the department to really bring cyber to all of the other domains of warfighting, to coordinate across the services, and to look for opportunities where resourcing is needed and where we need to really focus the department's efforts to achieve these outcomes that are going to be critical to all future conflicts going forward.
Thank you. And just in order to make sure that all of our members get an opportunity to speak, and we're going to do several rounds of questions, I'll defer right now to Senator Rosen. And
I'm going to defer to Senator Gillibrand because we're here the whole time and everyone has a lot of hearings going on. So Senator Gillibrand, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Vice Chairman. General Hartman, since the fiscal year 2017 NDAA, Cybercom has had the authority over the training of assigned joint forces, conducting specialized courses of instruction, monitoring and promotion of cyber operation forces, coordinating with the military departments regarding assignment, retention, training, education, and special and incentive pays for cyber operation forces. The command has been the joint force trainer for almost as long. Much of Cybercom 2.0 appears to be tinkering with this space rather than fundamental reimagining. Can you speak to why the command did not take these steps before and why you believe this is a dramatic transformation?
Senator, thanks for your questions. As you point out, in 2017, we were given certain authorities, but what we didn't have control of at the time was the funding, Senator. And so, as you're aware, in 2023, we were given enhanced budget control. There were a series of issues that actually caused us to not receive that control of that funding until 2024. And so while we had some authorities, we really had no enforcement mechanisms, and we have started to execute those enforcement mechanisms, and we've seen benefit from that. Senator, Cybercom 2.0 does not intend to totally reinvent how we train the force, but what it does intend to do is make sure that the services are held to the standard of 1,000 level training. Okay, the Cybercom J7 will continue to execute 2,000 level training. So basic training by the services, qualification through Cybercom, which we've made a lot of progress on the last 2 years. And then what Cybercom 2.0 is really going to bring is advanced and specialized training, moving at the pace of industry, that is really required, that will allow us to both compete and really plan to outpace China. That is the construct that we're laying out, Senator.
Thank you. Secretary Sutton, while the services largely say cyber is important, it is not a top priority for any of them. Agreeing to a notional plan is easy, but the services are notoriously protective of their control over the recruiting, retention, and talent management. How will your office hold services accountable and ensure they do not steamroll Cybercom on career and talent management? And I will just say that this committee, we have had hearing after hearing, year after year, and we have drilled down to how many personnel you're getting from each service and which services are slower than the other and what level of staff you can acquire. And frankly, it is never good enough. So I just really want to know how you intend to succeed.
Senator, I appreciate your question and understand the frustration. I think you're really highlighting what is fundamental about Cyber Command 2.0, which is involvement at the secretary's level to really coordinate and make sure that the services are all doing things consistently and that we rise everybody to the top bar. We see best practices in pockets across the services, but have historically lacked a a coherent effort to bring all those together and rise all levels up. It is going to require hard discussions internal to the building. It's going to require prioritization, and we have a clear direction from the Secretary of War when he approved this plan about the importance of bringing up of increasing the lethality of our cyber warriors. I look forward to having all those internal battles within the Pentagon because I think it is fundamental to what we owe our cyber warriors that come to work every day and do this mission, is to be able to train them and retain them in ways that allow us to maintain the world's most competitive cyber force.
It was just reported that China approved the import of the H200 chips to ByteDance, Alibaba, and Tencent. These companies all work closely with the Chinese military, and just a few months ago, reports indicated a White House memo raised concerns that Alibaba provided support for PRC military operations against targets in the U.S. If these sales go through, what impact will this acquisition of H200s have on their ability to target the U.S. military and U.S. critical infrastructure?
Senator, I haven't studied that question, and so I'll agree to get back to you with an answer.
Thank you. And just my last point, I'd like to hear from each of you. I still don't understand why you don't want a cyber academy. I just don't know why you don't want a service academy that will just train the personnel you need from top to bottom consistently and regularly. We tried to create small pipelines for you through the Cyber Academy for non-military personnel, but I still don't know why you don't want your own. And I get why you are going to use existing services and try to do better training, but the future of war is going to be cyber, and I don't know why we're taking so long to do this. And I think also in your testimony you said that your goal for what's the group, the ACTEC, the Advanced Cyber Training and Education Center, won't be fully operational capable to Q3 fiscal year 31. I mean, that's a really long time for any bricks and mortar, but can you just each talk about why you don't have this vision and why is it so difficult?
So really appreciate that question, because I think how we get the right training to our people and what courses we have available and what mechanisms we have is really important. Really want to highlight the importance in Cyber Command 2.0 of the ACTEC, the Advanced Cyber Training and Education Center. And the intent of it is actually not to be a brick and mortar institution, because what we see as having an internal developed training system is probably always going to be slow to need. As we look at the timelines it takes to get basic training updated, we're losing out to the best of breed that's happening in industry and academia. And so that Advanced Cyber Training Education Center model is really intended to figure out what our requirements are, where we have skills and key knowledge gaps that we need training on, and then to be able to go out to industry and academia, find the best of breed, if it's available out there, bring that in, and then we can have standards that we're trained to. And so that's really the model that we're looking to move out on quickly. The timelines that we're talking about are to get it fully up and scaled across the entire force, across an entire curriculum. I'll let General Hartman talk about some of the early pilots that we're aiming to get some quick wins in right off the bat.
I just don't, again, the chairman can take control of this, but honestly, we've been saying that for a decade, and it just doesn't work. We can't compete. We don't pay enough. Our salaries are too low. And so the benefit that the service academies have is it's free college for 4 years or 2 years or whatever it's going to be. And so kids will choose to do that route because we can compete on that. We cannot compete. If you, let's say you set your standard every 6 months of the perfect person, they're not going to join you because they're making $400,000 or $600,000 where they are. You're not going to get them. So you guys can answer the question if you want, but you can also take the time back if you like, Mr. Chairman.
I will allow the question, and if you've got it, and if not, we can bring it back in and you can respond with a written response. But I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are on it.
So I just one thing, and then I'll let General Hartman also provide his answer. So I am a firm believer in exactly what you mentioned. I am a scholarship for service recipient. My master's degree was funded through government funds with a service obligation, and over 20 years later, I'm still in government. I see it's a very powerful recruiting tool and something that we are continuing to look at to opportunities to continue to leverage.
Senator, I'm not opposed to a joint, cyber service training academy. I think there's great merit in that. What I don't think is the best answer right now is to divorce our cyber capability in the department from the services. And that is based on everything that we're doing from an operational standpoint. And, if I've got to build a cyber plan against an adversary's air defense network, the Air Force as a service brings tremendous capability to me that I don't believe we need to separate. And then the second piece is the Advanced Cyber Training Academy. What we are trying to do is really marry the training to the operational elements of the command. And so we learn thing in an ops room, both offensive and defensively, that we immediately turn into a training requirement that we train across the force. And so each disparate element isn't learning every time they get on keyboard in order to execute operations. We just think that's fundamentally important, but there is a huge institutional training requirement, and I support your idea.
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand, for the excellent questions. Appreciate that. Ms. Sutton and General Hartman, you're likely aware of the calls, and this follows the same line, but for the establishment of a separate military service dedicated to the cyber domain, or a cyber force. Like me, you are no doubt close with and respect many of those who are supportive of a cyber force. What would you say to those national security and cyber experts who are advocating for a separate cyber force? Step right into it.
I knew he was going to ask that, didn't you?
So I appreciate that question. I think this is a really important debate for us all to be having about the future of the cyber warfighting domain. I do think one of the most common misconceptions about Cyber Command is that it's a debate between Cyber Command 2.0 and a cyber force. And they're actually separate debates that I believe both need to be had, and we need to look closely at the pros and cons of both. Cyber Command 2.0 is inherently about building a talent model. It's looking across the entire talent pipeline from when we recruit someone, how we make sure we have the right talent, how we train them, how we retain them, how we build careers for them, how we really build our cyber warriors. We know how to do this as Cyber Command has become operational, we've built a set of very capable cyber operators. Now we need to do that at scale and have a system that supports that rather than doing it on an ad hoc method. And so Cyber Command 2.0 is really that talent management model. And we've been very careful as we've built that model that it's agnostic to the organizational model, and that it would support both the current model where 5 services present, as well as other organizational models such as the establishment of a cyber force. So I think they're both really important debates to have, but they are separate debates that we need to make sure that we're quickly moving ahead with Cyber Command 2.0. We have a lot of work done, and it's required regardless of what model we have to build the talent. And so that's our immediate focus, is working on all of these fundamental activities that we're going to need going forward that would enable any future decisions to be made about an organizational change.
General Hartman?
Chairman, just would like to add 3 things to what the Honorable Sutton said. So agree with her that this Cybercom 2.0 is certainly important regardless of any future decision. I do believe when we did the analysis for Cybercom 2.0, the timeline was fundamentally important. All right, and so we did view this through a 2027 lens. We viewed it through a resourcing lens, and through that lens, Cybercom 2.0 provided us the best opportunity in order to build the force that we needed on a 2027 timeline, and I think that's important. The second piece is I fundamentally believe the ability to integrate across the joint force is best suited to the model that we are developing here in Cybercom 2.0. And that is fundamentally important. I didn't answer the question that you asked earlier, but our ability to integrate not just left of conflict, but during a conflict in all phases of the operation, just like any other traditional military capability, is absolutely essential us delivering the capability that the nation needs. And I think Cybercom 2.0 is really the best course to do that.
And I'm going to be asking a question a little bit about some of the cyber activity that might occur during an operation as well. But I do want to follow up a little bit. With Cybercom 2.0, where does a civilian workforce fit into a Cybercom 2.0 concept?
So the scope of Cyber Command 2.0 is primarily focused on the cyber mission force, and it's enabling organizations, the headquarters, Cyber Command headquarters, the Joint Force Cyber headquarters, which is a blended workforce of both military and civilian and contractor work roles. So as a result, within Cyber Command 2.0, the majority of the initiatives do apply to both military and civilian populations, and we have sort of dedicated lines of effort that also target some things that are unique to both sides. So in short, we're addressing both issues for those elements that support the cyber mission force.
Plenty of room for Guard units to continue to participate?
Absolutely. The Guard and the Reserve are going to be critical on how we bring in some of that unique talent that has special expertise. And there are specific lines of effort in the implementation plan where we look at how to bring that in, as well as they will be a fundamental part of our cross-functional team that we're building to roll out the implementation.
Senator Rosen.
Thank you. Well, you actually set me up for my next question. You didn't even know, but I want to thank you for the testimony so far, because cyber isn't an add-on or service adjacent anymore. It has to be part of the fabric of everything we do, woven in. And talking about data, I always say this data tells a story if you know how to listen to it. And so I hope that we can maybe have a hearing to talk about how we think about data and its role in everything that we do going forward. That's a separate issue. But I actually want to talk about the service members, to what Senator Rounds was talking about. So I have two questions for you, General Hartman. One's on the regular force, and the second one's on the Guard and Reserve. So the first one, can you talk a little bit how you build a fully qualified cyber operator? What does a training pipeline look like at service and joint level? And what kind of on-the-job experience is required before they can be deemed fully qualified? And how often do they, I guess, have their benchmarks taken, I guess, if you think of it like that?
Thanks, Senator. And so each of the services produce a cyber operator, and that's a blanket term. We have a number of different specialties across the force. And then we, Cybercom, supervise what we call work role training. And so if you're an interactive on-net operator, you go to a specific training course. If you're an exploitation analyst or another specialty, you would do the same thing. And we work through a process that allows them to meet a series of benchmarks and then become fully qualified. Once they become fully qualified, they execute a series of operations and move from basic to journeyman to master level of qualification. Historically, we haven't produced a lot of operators at the master level because the training and the certification process has taken too long. And part of Cybercom 2.0 is how do we reduce that training timeline and allow them to focus more on operations, vice less on qualifications. And so I think we have, over the years, reduced that benchmark, but you get trained, you get qualified, you execute operations, you become a non-commissioned officer, and then you supervise the next group of people that we're bringing up. It is a process that works, but it doesn't work fast enough, and that is really the focus of 2.0 and the AgTech program.
Thank you. I want to ask a similar question about the skills of our National Guard and Reserve members. They're not currently tracked, it's my understanding, as the same fidelity as the active force, and so they're going to be a critical part, to your point, of bringing in the public sector, I guess, who, if you will, say it that way. So what specific steps can you talk to us about how you're going to ensure that a guardsman or reservist with those high-end cyber skills, they might be doing it in the regular world, their civilian career, how can they be activated for special mission? How are you working with that? Because I do think that is a big part of our pipeline and training. So whomever, whatever you want, both can answer, please.
Thanks, Senator. And so we do have organizations in the National Guard that are exemplars that we are trying to really use to leverage it across the entire reserve component. We've got the Delaware and the Maryland Air National Guard that is part of our Cyber National Mission Force. So one of our most elite organizations, really for the last decade. We bring those service members on active duty, and they participate as full members of the team. To be honest with you, they bring deep expertise because when they're not mobilized, as you highlighted, they go back to civilian jobs. We have an organization down in Texas supporting our Air Force Cyber organization that again provides a significant amount of expertise. We have the same model on the defensive side. What we have to do is scale that across the force. We've got to get them all in JCC2R, our readiness tool, and we've got to be able to track them just like we're tracking our active duty service members.
Because you may, across the country, have each state may have one or two that are working in this area in their civilian life. And so how do we pull them in?
Senator, that is our plan. We are at relatively early stages,
Yeah.
but as we build this out, that is our intent.
Thank you, Senator Rounds.
Thank you, and General Messer, you've gotten off too easy so far.
I know.
I'm going to throw you the hard one now, and this is sitting in an unclassified setting. I want you to talk a little bit about successes, and I want to specifically talk Venezuela. It's been in the news, been a lot of discussion about the fact that this was a good example of what happens when you combine all of the joint forces, including cyber operations. Once again, I understand that this is an unclassified, but there's a lot of folks out there that might now have a curiosity about this, and they may very well want to be a part of a team in the future that you're going to have to try to recruit. Can you share with us, and I would open up to anyone else as well here, but can you share with us the types of operations and how this happened? It's not just at the national level or the international level or the big picture strategically, but tactically, how critical cyber is when you're doing, and this was a law enforcement operation, but it required the support of the armed forces of the United States. Can you share a little bit about what that meant for the cyber teams involved? And a no answer is not acceptable.
Senator, thanks for the question. What I probably won't do is go into the specifics of the Venezuela operation, but what I will tell you is, as has been mentioned by Honorable Sutton and General Hartman, the role that they play as leaders in pushing cyber to the forefront, I think, is critical. And that's one of the things we've seen from Chairman Kane, is his emphasis on not just traditional kinetic effects, but the role non-kinetic effects play in all of our global operations, especially cyber. So leading up to the events in Venezuela over the last 6 months, we've been developing something new on the Joint Staff called a non-kinetic effects cell. This is designed to integrate, coordinate, and synchronize all of our non-kinetics into the planning and then, of course, the execution of any operation globally. I think it's important to point out that one of the reasons that it has been successful is the emphasis that the chairman has placed on the role of non-kinetics, and in particular cyber, and then the coordination that has continued to grow and mature with Cybercom as we work through various operations around the globe.
So in this particular case, not only there was a huge amount of work to be done beforehand, but then it had to be executed at the time, as we say, not just on the left side, but during the operation itself. For young men and women that are out there and they want to be involved in a growing and very exciting field, can you talk a little bit about what that means in terms of why we want these folks to actually be a part of not just the large cyber mission force, but actually within their own branches, and the need to maintain that continuity and understanding of the big picture by individuals who are back in with their regular units, and how that gets integrated in terms of providing direct assistance on a unit-by-unit basis. How integrated this is, and as representative of the joint forces, I just kind of wanted to hear you talk about how critical that is.
Yes, sir. So cyber operations are critical to everything we do, whether it's just day-to-day operations of the functionings of the Department of War, or it's actual execution and operations. One of the things that I'll point out is growing up in the Air Force, there was always a non-kinetic effects cell at an air operations center. But it usually existed back in a back room. It was a very dark place, and usually we didn't ask for many inputs from that team until we wanted to sprinkle what we call the lightning bolts onto some form of operation. The reality is that we've now pulled cyber operators to the forefront. So if I were talking to a group of young people who are considering a career and joining General Hartman's team over at Cybercom, I would say you're not just going to be integral to every operation we are going to do, but you will be at the forefront of everything we do, in both now and in the future.
So let's just say that there's a young man or woman out there, and they enjoy the keyboard work, and they're fascinated by cyber. They've seen what hackers do. Is there a place for the good guy hackers to be, and how would they be able to let you know that they want to go to work for you? What's the best way to get that word out?
Sir, I think there would absolutely be a role for them to play, and I think that the targeted recruiting and assessments that will be a focus of Cybercom 2.0 will open up more of those opportunities to find those unique individuals. And I wanted to see if General Hartman wanted to say more about that.
There is a place for them to go, Chairman, absolutely. And so our intent as part of Cybercom 2.0 is, you know, if you're a young person, a hacker, you want to come serve your country when you show up at your recruiting station, we want you to be administered a cyber aptitude test. If you score well on that test, we would like you to be offered a contract to become a cyber operator in whatever your service of choice is. And we would like you to then go through the pipeline and come to Cybercom. That's the first way. The second way is we are going to execute an in-service recruiting pilot. And so if you are out in another specialty, the same way that you might attract a Delta Force operator in the Army, we're going to also give you an aptitude test. And if you meet a certain score on that aptitude test, we're going to work with your service to have you move to the cyber operational force. And so we believe those two areas are ways that we can really attract world-class talent. I do want to go back, if you would allow me, to just address a little bit the question that you asked the J39. And so I would tell you, not just Absolute Resolve, but Midnight Hammer and a number of other operations, we've really graduated to the point where we're treating a cyber capability just like we would a kinetic capability. We're not sprinkling cyber on. We are integrating cyber operations into the Joint Force Commander's plan, and we're executing it to achieve specific effects that are ultimately tied to what the commander is trying to achieve, and we're doing it in a repeatable, sustainable manner across a number of different COCOMs. And so while we can't go in detail here, Chairman, I would love to get an opportunity to brief you in some level of detail. I do believe it is fundamentally one of the reasons we created Cybercom, and I do believe we've achieved a certain level of integration that's really important for our nation.
Thank you for that, and we will make arrangements to have a classified meeting, and we would invite you to come back and share that with the members of this subcommittee. Thank you for that. Senator Rosen.
Thank you. I can tell you, the young woman who started her career in computer programming in 1980s something, I couldn't dream of what's happening now, and would have been so excited about all the things that you're doing or having even been recruited. Of course, none of these things didn't exist in the same way they do now, so I can tell you all those folks are out there, because if the way back clock, if you went back and this was her then, it would have been something that would have excited me, and it still excites me to this day to think about it. Cyber is kinetic capability. It is in the fabric of everything we do. We use it the same as every bit of intelligence and every bit of capability, and it is really important. But I just want to ask, I think the last question I'm going to ask is, how do we leverage security automation tools to defend our DoD networks? We're talking a lot about the pipeline. We know we have more to go, and to recruit and train and figure out how we're blending all of this together so it's seamless in the same ways that we do a lot of our intelligence capabilities, right? But I want to just move for a second. How about security automation tools? So General Hartman, you have to defend those DoD networks. It's fundamental, right? And so I had a provision in the Cyber Defense Command to subordinate to a subordinate unified command included in the FY25 NDAA. It's a structural change that reflects the sophistication of the current threat landscape. So as our adversaries increasingly utilize AI, as we get around this circle about AI, to execute cyber attacks at machine speed, the department's ability to maintain real-time visibility over the DoD information network being tested like never before. So detecting a vulnerability, it's only half the battle, right? You know you have a vulnerability, and now you got to close the door. So it requires a speed that manual process may not be able to achieve. So by deploying security automation tools, can we move from a reactive posture to a proactive defense that keeps China, Russia, other adversaries off our networks? And how are you kind of factoring in this use of automation and AI into Cybercom 2.0 for our developing cyber operators as we defend the network?
Senator, thanks for the question. First of all, thanks for the legislation as it relates to DCDC and a sub-unified command. I assure you General Stanton has taken that legislation and is running with it. Thank you. And certainly implementing that. The use of automation, artificial intelligence in order to secure the Department of War Information Network is absolutely a part of Cybercom 2.0 in our plan for the defense of the DoD. It's not going to entirely take the human out of the loop, but what it is going to do is identify the most important data that our analysts need to look at in order to best protect our network. We've executed a number of pilots. One, I think we previously briefed, called Panoptic Junction, that the Army executed down at Fort Gordon. We are looking at scaling that technology. It was specifically focused about how to find Chinese living off the land techniques that we've seen repeatedly used. The bigger piece, though, is really closing the loop between what we learn in our offensive capability and what our defensive teams are prepared to defend against. And literally in real time, turning around that knowledge, and so that as we learn more, we use that information to drive our own defense for our networks. And artificial intelligence and automation is absolutely 100% part of our plan.
Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind if I add in just one additional comment. One of the things that I'm really excited about with Cyber Command 2.0 is the Cyber Innovation Warfare Center, or the CWIC, which is really looking at how do we adopt all the innovation that is moving very rapidly in this domain, particularly AI and automation, and how do we operationalize that most effectively in the department. So it's not just about acquiring a tool or a technology. There's a lot of non-material aspects that will need to be successful. How do we need to train our workforce to most effectively use that tool? AI is going to change fundamentally what many of our work roles do in this domain. And so how do we develop new training modules? What doctrine, what new tactics, techniques, and procedures do we need to develop to be able to fully leverage these new capabilities? And so the model of the CWIC is to have an innovation warfare center that can look at technologies that are going to have game-changing effects in our domain, bring in the operational input that General Hartman mentioned, and in a very short term, look at how we need to address everything we need to adopt that technology, both material and non-material, and then get that into our platforms as quickly as possible. It'll be our tie to industry. It ties our operational force directly to industry to allow this to happen at the speed at which we're seeing the capabilities come out.
No, I couldn't agree more. Thank you for that answer. I do think artificial intelligence will potentiate what we can do, help us do it faster, maybe a little bit smarter, but it will help us pull it all together. Thank you for that.
General Hartman, just to follow up with regard to the response that you gave to Senator Rosen, one of the items that you talked about was kind of a term of art when you say that Chinese are living off the land. Can you, since this is an open meeting and it's going to be broadcast, can you share a little bit about what that means for folks that are out there, about how that works, what that means?
It just means that the Chinese have executed a deliberate campaign in order to compromise U.S. networks and then use native commands and native features inside those networks to move around to look like legitimate traffic that makes it difficult for us to find those.
Fair to say, just to confirm, they would be within our telecommunications systems today. That's
So we have seen them in telecommunication system. We've seen them in critical infrastructure. That's the bad news. The good news is we see them and we report them and we execute operations to get them out of those networks. And increasingly, as we build expertise under the Cybercom 2.0 program, it will allow us to do that more effectively.
Thank you. Just curious as well, I'm thinking now about universities across this country, and I'm going to use an example in South Dakota, Dakota State University, where they produce perhaps 400 cyber professionals per year. They have jobs basically before they're out of school. They're in the Madison, Sioux Falls area in South Dakota. But a lot of them want to be a part of providing cyber protections. You have and you need to be able to do not only cyber protection, defensive capabilities for the Department of Defense's programs, but you also then do offensive stuff as well, and you need tools for both. Can you talk a little bit about what you have for capabilities in terms of getting young people involved in the development of the specific tools? And these are tools that are not just traditional cyber tools, but ones that have basically been agentized, for lack of a better term, using AI as a part of that process. Can you talk about the need for that and the availability for young people out there that want to be involved in this and who may not necessarily want to be directly involved full-time, but either through guard units or through a civilian contract, and your interest in actually having them make contact with you along that line?
Absolutely. And so in the command, in our service components, each of those organizations have development organizations. And those development organizations work specifically with operational teams in order to produce capabilities. To date, that effort hasn't been as unified as we would like. It is one of the key work roles that we talk about. When Honorable Sutton talked about the CWIC is really going to be the organization that brings our service development units together and ensures that they have the absolute best training, they have access to the best development environments, they have modeling and simulation capabilities to really look at what are future capabilities. In each of those organizations, we have both military and civilian members, and certainly there's an opportunity to work there. Across a number of our reserve component units, we partner with them from a development standpoint. But I think that the latter part, Chairman, is where we really have to move forward with Cybercom 2.0, and it's how do we partner with cutting-edge, innovative private companies that we can work with in order to produce capabilities that we need in order to execute operations. And as I said in my opening statement, this probably isn't the extremely large defense firms. It's these smaller organizations, oftentimes made up of members that used to be in the cyber mission force or as part of the intelligence community, and we are working with a number of those organizations right now in order to do that.
Thank you. Senator Rosen?
So you need the developers of the software for the end user. So this is where you're writing application software. This is where the collaboration between a software developer and your end user is, because we don't want to give you what we think you need. We want to give you what you actually need. So these are where the conversations about creating what you need, and the person goes to write that software for you, or however that gets done, or gives you the tools to let that happen dynamically with giving you the framework, and they can put in certain particulars. So I'm very excited about you doing this. So that leads me to the question we always ask, what do you need from us, right? So you might need new authorities. You might need incentives, retention incentive payments, rotational programs, other legislation, things with the private sector, expedited clearance, perhaps, if you're going to be using folks from the private sector. So we're going to be working on the NDA this next year, right, as we speak. So as you think about this, what are some things off the top of your head that will help us with readiness, workforce retention, private sector, what do you need from us as we go back and think about our next hearings to get us ready for our good mark?
So I'll start out by saying how grateful we are for all of the things you have given us. I think there's been significant focus over the last 5 to 7 years on additional authorities, additional funding, additional pay. I think the department at this point has a significant obligation to execute all of those, and I think we're on a good path to do that. At the moment, we have not identified any specific new authorities that are necessary. A lot of it is implementing the authorities and really maturing and fully leveraging the authorities that we already have, but do appreciate the offer and am intending that we'll continue to work with you iteratively as we work through the implementation of Cyber Command 2.0 and identify things that we do need. You will be the first ones to know, and we will gladly get you that information.
So I agree with Honorable Sutton. We appreciate all the additional authorities that we've been offered. We appreciate your advocacy for funding. It will be important as we implement 2.0, as we really build out the capabilities that we need from an artificial intelligence standpoint. I do believe there'll be a discussion about how do we best fund the activation of reserve component forces to ensure that we can do that in a sustainable, repeatable manner, that we're able to bring the talent to the active force in order to execute specific missions. There's been some good use case examples, but it is a system that's not optimized, and I do think we'll work with the department and Congress on how we might look to do that better in the future.
So like my civilian cyber reserve idea, perhaps.
I think it's a great idea, Senator.
General wanted to add something?
Ma'am, I was just going to say thank you very much for the support that you've provided. I reflect what Honorable Sutton said of y'all been exceptionally supportive. I think it's now time to fulfill Cybercom 2.0's objectives, and then from there, continued support from Congress is much appreciated because, as you both pointed out, this is a part of warfare in the 21st century and will continue to be. And so your support and advocacy as well and is tremendous. So thank you.
Well, I know I'm thankful for your work and everyone that works with you, and I'm especially grateful to be ranking member with Senator Rounds, because on this committee, we just see cyber on this committee, right? And so it is really a pleasure to be able to think about these things in a meaningful way going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rosen, and it is bipartisan, and it needs to stay that way. And we need to look at how we fully mature this particular protection within this particular domain. And I appreciate your help and the cooperation that the entire members on both sides have done in moving this forward, as clearly evidenced by the amount that we're getting done in each of the NDAAs over the last couple of years. So we appreciate that. Thank you. With that, this will conclude the open portion of today's Cybersecurity Subcommittee hearing. Questions for the record will be due to the committee within 2 business days of the conclusion of this hearing. And General Hartman, I'll take you up at some point in the future. We will set aside time for a classified hearing to learn a little bit more about the processes and the procedures that you did use so successfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you all for your sacrifice and service for our country. And with that, this committee meeting is adjourned.